And even though I didn't understand it at that point, I just knew somehow that women were just inherently more interesting to me. And later on, I understood, in what way and what the hell that was all about. But the idea that I chose to be straight is just ridiculous beyond the utmost. I don't even have to talk about it because it's so patently ridiculous. So why is it that that's ridiculous, but yet people don't find it ridiculous? And I have had conversations with people who find it ridiculous that one would choose to be straight, but yet somehow seem to believe that people choose to be gay. I mean, you just are gay. Whether it's genetic or not, you're gay. You don't choose it any more than I choose to be straight. But anyway, if we're going to believe in a slightly fluffier kind of God, the kind of God which sometimes rears his head in the New Testament, and the God that Jesus evidently worshipped, a God of love and care for all his creations, then we've got a problem. Why would such a God be so wicked and basically, horrible, spiteful, really, to make beings, gay people, who were inherently sinful and who were destined for hell and damnation? I mean, that doesn't sound like a very good God to me. That doesn't sound like a very nice God. It sounds very much like the Old Testament God, who, I believe it's the first commandment, says, I am a jealous God. I am a jealous God. I'm a jealous God, and if you, take any idols or anyone before me, I'm going to punish your family down to the 3rd and 4th generations. I mean, bloody hell. That's like, all those Nazi officers and the like, and everyone who supported the Nazis who was sent to jail or executed after the Nazi regime was destroyed. It's like saying that those people, their descendants, people the same age as me, sort of early 20s or whatever, whose grandparents or great-grandparents were Nazis, it's like saying that they should also suffer the same punishment for what their ancestors did. That is a disgusting philosophy. It is a disgusting philosophy. And it's certainly not the philosophy, it's the philosophy of the Old Testament, as I just said, but it's not the philosophy of the New Testament. It's certainly not the philosophy of Jesus, and it is not the philosophy that Christians claim, as their own. They do not say our God is a horrible God, he hates everyone. They say our God's a lovely God, he's a sweet God. Look at Jesus, he was such a sweet man, he was such a gentle man, he was such a caring man. How could Jesus be like that if God was such a bastard, as he is in the Old Testament, So, if you're a Christian, you have to believe in Jesus, and Jesus is God. And Jesus' God is not the God of the Old Testament, because that God is just incongruous with Jesus' philosophy of forgiveness and love and caring for everyone. Okay? So, to summarize the things I've talked about here, or rambled on about, shall I say, one, if you're a Christian, what Jesus said, did, talked about, and so on, should be the basis of your beliefs, okay? Everything else that conflicts or contrasts with that should be disregarded, even if it's in the Bible. If it's in the Bible, even if God supposedly said it, if it contradicts what Jesus said, and you are a Christian, then you have to disregard it, because what Jesus said takes precedence. It's your duty, furthermore, as a Christian, to research all sources, even contemporaneous Gospels, that is contemporaneous with the Gospels in the Bible, which didn't make the cut. It's your job to research those Gospels, like Thomas, and see what they say. Try to come closer to the actual words and thoughts of Jesus, or otherwise you're not a Christian, are you? Point 2. Jesus was forgiveful of all sinners, and he said to love your enemy as you love yourself. And he was a pacifist, and he hated the idea of hurting another person was not what Jesus was about, whether it's physically or emotionally. He was not a man who would favour Old Testament style stonings and burnings for homosexuals, as well as kids who backchat their parents and adulterers. I'm sorry, he would forgive and love homosexuals. Of course, that implies that homosexuality is a sin and that Jesus thought it was a sin. But anyway, point 3. If homosexuality is shown to be sort of inborn, or essentially inborn, it's something that you just don't have a choice over, then, it's impossible to even accept that it is a sin that should be forgiven, or at least it's impossible to accept it as a sin unless you believe in a spiteful, vengeful God as outlined in the Old Testament. If you believe in Jesus as God, then you can't possibly believe that homosexuality is a sin if it is shown, as it pretty much has been, that it's inborn and it's not something people choose, you know. God made them that way. God made gay people that way, you know, in terms of his upbringing, in terms of their upbringing, or in terms of the way they were born, in terms of their genes, you know. So if you do believe in a spiteful, vengeful God who hates gays and created gays just so they could be hated, you know, then you're not following and believing the loving philosophy of Jesus, you know, and frankly, therefore, I would say you're not a real Christian, okay? Yeah. If you believe in the Jesus God and Jesus, then you know you cannot accept homosexuality as a sin if the evidence says it's not a choice, okay? Okay, that's the end of my waffle stroke rant. If you've listened to the end of it, you know, thank you. Comments, bloody whatever, you know, emails, you know, it's all welcome. You know, hopefully you've enjoyed what I've spoken about. Hopefully it's made you think. Hopefully you'll look up a couple of these things, particularly the alternative gospels I mentioned. You know, I mean, if I don't comment in detail on every comment or every point that you make, you know, don't feel like I'm ignoring you or I don't have an answer or whatever. I mean, it is simply to, you know, it could take hours to give a really good response to a single, really well thought out comment. And if this video gets more than, you know, 2 viewings, it's just not going to be possible to give proper in-depth comments to everyone. But, you know, do comment, and I will try to respond and talk to you about any issues that you want to raise in relation to what I've said. Okay, thank you all.